I was publicly executed at 10:15 a.m. on a Wednesday. But by the time Julian Croft realized he had cut off the company's brainstem, not just a single nerve, the patient was already flatlining. He thought he had eliminated a redundancy in a cold, strategic purge. What he didn't understand was that I wasn't just an employee. I was the central nervous system of Gene Vance Therapeutics, the invisible network connecting 10 years of Nobel Prize-winning minds, multi-billion-dollar clinical trials, and the absolute trust of the scientific community. By the time he understood the catastrophic scale of his miscalculation, it was far too late. My name is Veda Kane, and I spent a decade building something that could never be measured on a balance sheet or optimized in a synergy memo. At 38, I had become the human catalyst for a $5 billion biotech giant. I was the person top researchers called from their labs in Tokyo or Zurich, not through official channels, but on my encrypted line when they had a breakthrough too fragile for an email. I was the one who could translate the elegant language of protein folding into the brutal dialect of shareholder value, the bridge between a hypothesis on a napkin and a life-saving drug in a vial. That Wednesday morning at our Boston headquarters started like any other. I arrived at 7:00 a.m., coffee in hand, already reviewing encrypted data packets from our partners at the Petrova Institute about our flagship Alzheimer's project. The quarterly research symposium was scheduled for 10:00 a.m., a routine update, nothing special. I had even prepared a presentation showcasing our phase II trial success rates, which were holding at an unprecedented 85%. I should have seen the signs. The way conversations hushed when I approached the executive wing. The way our new chief strategy officer, Julian Croft, a recent transplant from a rival big pharma company and radiating that signature ruthless synergy arrogance, had been canceling our one-on-one meetings all month. But I was too deep in the science, too focused on securing the next round of funding for the Petrova collaboration, to notice the corporate maneuvering. The auditorium filled quickly. 200 of the brightest minds in biotechnology, scientists I had personally recruited, partners I had cultivated for years. I took my usual seat in the front row, laptop open, presentation ready. Julian stood at the podium, his suit perfect, his smile a thin, bloodless line. Before we discussed the quarterly pipeline, he began, and a sudden coldness in his tone made my focus sharpen. We need to address a strategic realignment of our partnership model. I was 2 slides into my presentation on the Alzheimer's project, detailing the breakthrough data from the Petrova Institute, when he interrupted. Actually, Veda, you can stop there. The room fell into a silence so profound I could hear the hum of the ventilation system. Not the respectful quiet of an engaged audience, but the vacuum of collective shock. After a thorough strategic review, Julian continued, his voice slick with practiced corporate indifference. We have determined that your role and its reliance on legacy relationships no longer aligns with a leaner, more efficient Gene Vance. I kept my hands perfectly still on my laptop, my gaze locked on his. I'm sorry. Your employment is terminated. Effective immediately. He said it as if he were announcing a minor adjustment to the quarterly budget. Security will escort you to collect your personal items after this symposium. The blood roared in my ears, a tidal wave of disbelief and fury, but my face remained a neutral mask. 10 years. 10 years of 70-hour weeks, of salvaging partnerships others had declared dead, of building the very foundation of trust that transformed Gene Vance from a small lab into a global leader. May I ask what specific performance metrics led to this decision? My voice was colder and steadier than I felt. This isn't about performance, it's about strategy, he said, turning to the audience, making my termination a power play, a message to all. As we scale, we must transition from personal relationships to decisions driven by pure data. We cannot be held back by legacy bloat. Legacy bloat. He called the bedrock of our entire drug pipeline legacy bloat. I slowly, deliberately closed my laptop. I stood up. The room watched me, a sea of stunned faces. I saw Dr. Alastair Finch, a man whose groundbreaking cancer research I had championed for 6 years, look down at his hands, unable to meet my eyes. I see, I said. Nothing more. Julian's thin smile widened. He mistook my composure for defeat. HR will handle the logistics. Thank you for your contributions. I walked out of that auditorium with my head held high, past rows of brilliant scientists I had fought for in budget meetings, past people whose careers I had helped build. The sharp click of my heels on the marble floor was the only sound, an unnerving metronome marking the end of an era. But as I packed the few personal items from my desk, the photo from a conference in Kyoto, the framed first page of a published study I co-authored, a small, intricate model of a protein helix a grateful partner had given me, my phone was already vibrating. Not with calls, but with encrypted messages lighting up on Signal and Wicker. One after another, from colleagues, from research partners, from board members of rival companies who somehow, impossibly, already knew. Julian thought he'd performed a clean, surgical removal. He had no idea he'd just triggered a systemic rejection, and the patient was the company itself. The small box in my car held a decade of my life, but my mind was already playing out the next 5 moves. I didn't drive home. Instead, I drove to the Athenaeum, a quiet, private library downtown where conversations of real consequence happened. At 11:30 a.m. on a Wednesday, it was nearly empty. Exactly what I needed. I found a secluded alcove, ordered a black coffee, and opened my laptop. Not to polish my resume or despairingly scroll through LinkedIn. No. I connected a small, encrypted hard drive I carried with me everywhere, a device I called the Alliance Ledger. It was a database I had built and maintained for 10 years, a private map of the true power structure of Gene Vance, one I never thought I would need to use as a weapon. I entered my credentials, passed 2 layers of security, and the numbers materialized on the screen. They were staggering. 45 active research and development partnerships. A collective drug pipeline valued at over $22 billion. Of those partnerships, 38 of the lead investigators had my personal, encrypted contact number and refused to communicate through official corporate channels. 15 of the 20 most valuable projects, the ones representing 80% of Gene Vance's future earnings, were entirely dependent on the personal trust I had built. My phone buzzed. A secure call. Dr. Eris Thorne, my former mentor, a living legend in molecular biology, now running a private venture fund. I heard, he said, his voice a gravelly rumble. That fool actually did it in front of everyone. News travels fast, Eris. Honey, in our world, trust travels at the speed of light, and the absence of it creates a vacuum. I've already had 3 calls from your partners asking if you're setting up your own shop. He paused, the silence deliberate, but I'm calling for a different reason. Remember that conversation we had last year, about building something new? I remembered. Eris had wanted me to leave Gene Vance then, to start a boutique consultancy focused on bridging the gap between academia and industry. I had declined. Out of loyalty. Loyalty to the teams I'd built, to the science we were advancing. That loyalty now tasted like acid. I'm listening now, I said. Don't join anyone else. Don't even consult for them. Start it yourself. I'll provide the seed funding, the lab space, access to my entire network. We structure it as a strategic alliance, not a buyout. You maintain full scientific and operational control. I stared at the Alliance ledger on my screen. Eris, I'm looking at the numbers right now. They will all follow you, he interrupted, his voice firm. Veda, you don't just manage Gene Vance's partnerships. You are their partnerships. That arrogant man in the perfect suit just handed you the keys to a multi-billion-dollar kingdom. He was right, but it wasn't just about the money or the power. It was about the science that would now stall. It was about the teams who looked at me with such shock and fear as I walked out, the patients waiting for the drugs we were developing. I need 48 hours, I told him. You have 24, he countered. A vacuum this large gets filled quickly. After we hung up, I made a list, not of partners to poach or employees to recruit. That would happen organically. This was a list of immediate leverage points. The Petrova Institute, a $500 million Alzheimer's trial about to enter its most critical phase. The Kaido Project in Japan, a gene therapy collaboration, culturally and technically sensitive, entirely dependent on my relationship with Professor Kaido. The Children's Cancer Fund, a major funding partner I had brought in through a personal connection to its founder. Then I pulled up Gene Vance's last investor relations deck, the one I had helped write. Page 32, Risk Factors, buried in legalese, was a line I had insisted on adding, high dependency on key scientific partnerships and personnel. What it didn't say was that I was the key personnel for all of them. My encrypted messages pinged. A message from Dr. Lena Petrova herself. Veda, heard rumors. Need to speak with you before our data transfer on Friday. My office. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Then another from Professor Kaido's lead scientist in Japan. Ms. Kane, is it true? Please advise, we cannot proceed without your oversight. And another, and another. I closed my laptop and drank my now cold coffee. Julian Croft thought he had asserted his authority by making an example of me. He believed that trust-based science was a legacy bloat, that partners cared more about efficiency metrics than the person who understood their research on a fundamental level. He was about to get a very expensive, very public education in just how wrong he was. I pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook and a pen. At the top of a clean page, I wrote a name, not for revenge but for a new beginning, Kane Bionexus. Simple, professional. Mine. By Thursday morning, the initial shock had fully crystallized into cold, diamond-hard resolve. The sympathy calls had trickled off, replaced by a steady, urgent stream of strategic inquiries. Julian had handed me a scalpel, and I was about to perform the most precise extraction of my career. At 4 p.m. sharp, I sat not in my car or a library, but in a secure teleconference room Eris Thorne had provided. Dr. Lena Petrova's face appeared on the screen, her expression severe, framed by the sterile white background of her institute. She was a woman who had dedicated 40 years of her life to unraveling the brutal complexities of neurodegenerative diseases. She had zero patience for corporate politics. 60 seconds, Veda, she said, her voice clipped. Explain, new chief strategy officer. Believes trust-based partnerships are inefficient. I represented the old model. He made an example of me. Dr. Petrova leaned back, her eyes narrowing. And my Alzheimer's trial, our shared data, my life's work, is contracted with Jean Vance, not with you. She pulled a document into the frame. I had our legal team review our agreement last night. Section 17, subsection 4. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. The principal investigator integrity clause. A ghost of a smile touched my lips. I'd forgotten the exact name, but I remembered the fight to get it included 5 years ago, during a contentious contract renewal. It stipulated that the partnership could be terminated for cause if the primary scientific liaison, my position, was removed or replaced without the principal investigator's consent. I'm not trying to poach your project, Lena. You're not poaching anything, she corrected me sharply. I am telling you plainly, the Petrova Institute collaborates with minds, not corporate logos. You have pulled our research back from the brink 3 times. My lead scientist called me yesterday, his voice shaking. He said half the data analysis team at Jean Vance is ready to walk out. My heart tightened. I had mentored that team, built it from the ground up. What do you need from me? I need you to tell me you are setting up your own entity, because I have a phase III trial to fund next year, and I will not entrust it to whatever hollowed-out shell is left of Jean Vance after this. Before I could respond, a notification chimed on her end. She glanced at it, then a flicker of grim satisfaction crossed her face. That's an email from Professor Kaito's team in Japan. They are halting all data sharing with Jean Vance, effective immediately, pending clarification on your involvement. She leaned forward, her eyes boring into mine. Veda, you have maybe 72 hours before this becomes a feeding frenzy. Every competitor, every vulture fund will be circling your partners. What is your play? I thought of Eris's offer, of the teams I had built, of the science hanging in the balance. Kane Bionexus, I said, the name feeling solid, real, independent scientific consulting. Strategic partnerships only. Same science, same integrity, new structure. When? Monday. Good. She nodded decisively. Send me the incorporation documents the moment they are filed. We will be your first official partner. We'll announce it Monday afternoon. That should send a clear message. We ended the call. As I stood, my phone rang again. It was Richard, the director of the Children's Cancer Fund. Veda, please tell me this is a corporate nightmare and I'm going to wake up. Richard, it's true. I'm no longer with Jean Vance. A heavy sigh on the other end. Then we have a problem. You personally guaranteed us this experimental therapy would be handled with the utmost care. I took that meeting with your former CEO because of you. My board approved that 7-figure grant because of you. If you are out, so are we. I understand your concern. No, I don't think you do. We have children in this trial. Their parents trust us, and we trusted you. If you are not managing this, we are looking at a catastrophic breach of faith. So, I will ask you again. Are you still involved? I made a decision, a clear, definitive one. I am establishing an independent practice. If Jean Vance agrees to subcontract the scientific oversight to my new firm, then yes, I can see this project through to its conclusion. Make it happen, he said, his voice hard as steel. I will call their CEO myself and tell him. We didn't fund Jean Vance. We funded you. By the time I got home late Thursday night, 3 more partners had called with the same ultimatum. We thought we were buying Gene Vance's resources, but we were really buying your expertise. I opened my laptop and drafted a simple, direct email to Eris Thorne. I'm in. Kane BioNexus launches Monday. I already have 3 foundational partners. His response came back in under a minute. Make it 5. I know 2 more who are just waiting for your call. The weekend was a blur of frenetic, focused activity. Eris's team worked miracles. By Friday evening, we had incorporation papers filed, bank accounts established, and a temporary office space set up in a secure wing of Eris's venture firm. The real work, however, was happening on my encrypted channels. The messages from my former team had evolved from shock and support to quiet, determined declarations. Leo, my brilliant lead data scientist, sent a simple message. We analyze data, not politics. The algorithm says to follow you. My resignation is drafted. It was followed by one from Maya, my lab coordinator, the person who knew the operational details of every single project. They asked me for your project files. I told them they were backed up on a secure server only you have access to. What are my next steps? Late Sunday night, I sat in what was now Kane BioNexus's command center. A legal pad, my encrypted laptop, and the growing weight of what was about to happen. You need to see this, Eris said, sliding a tablet across the conference table. The professional network for research scientists, a closed forum, was on fire. Someone had leaked the news of my public termination, and the scientific community was reacting with a ferocity that surprised even me. The post had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. Senior scientists from 3 rival companies had publicly offered me a position. But it was the comments from current Gene Vance employees that made my breath catch. Leo Chen, lead data scientist, Veda Kane taught me that data has no soul without integrity. Watching her work was a masterclass in ethical science. Maya Singh, senior lab coordinator, she saved my first project when a contamination issue almost derailed it. She didn't blame, she taught. Best leader I've ever worked with. Ben Carter, regulatory affairs specialist. Partners like the FDA trusted us because they trusted her. This is an institutional loss. Julian is probably having a meltdown, Eris mused. My phone rang. A burner number, but I recognized Ben's voice. Veda, I'm sorry to call so late. Thought you should know. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow at 7 a.m. Julian is in full panic mode. The Petrova Institute sent a formal notice Friday evening. They're invoking the Principal Investigator Integrity Clause. The Kaido project has ceased all communication. Legal is scrambling. Ben, you shouldn't be telling me this. I submitted my resignation an hour ago, effective immediately, he said, his voice calm and steady. I've been your regulatory lead for 5 years. You think I'm staying to work for him? I have a professional reputation to maintain. I can't work for a man who thinks the FDA is an obstacle to be overcome rather than a partner in patient safety. He paused. Besides, I'm not the only one. Leo and Maya are meeting with HR first thing in the morning. The entire bioinformatics team is about to walk. My eyes closed for a moment. This was happening faster than I'd anticipated. I wanted to build something new, not burn the old place to the ground. Let them come to you, Eris warned, reading my expression. Legally, it's cleaner. I'm not poaching anyone, I said. They're leaving a toxic environment. Good, he replied, because what I'm about to show you makes that distinction critical. He pulled up another screen. 3 more of your key partners reached out to my firm today asking about you. They all said the same thing. If you are consulting independently, they want to transition their agreements. The list made my stomach clench. Combined with Petrova and Kaido, we were now looking at a potential pipeline value of nearly $15 billion. From nothing to a market force in 96 hours. This isn't sustainable, I whispered. I can't service all of them alone. Then don't be alone, Eris said simply. You have a team of the best minds in the industry ready to follow you. Set your terms, be selective, build it right. Veda, you spent a decade building Gene Vance's scientific reputation. That reputation was never theirs. It was always yours. The market is just correcting the error. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. Ms. Kane, this is Chloe Zhang from Biopharma Today. We're running a story on the executive and scientific exodus at Gene Vance. Would you care to comment? No comment, I said, and ended the call. The press is on it, Eris observed. By tomorrow, this will be the biggest story in the industry. I thought about Julian in his corner office, likely preparing a spreadsheet to quantify the damage, unable to grasp that what he'd lost was unquantifiable. He played a game of corporate chess, sacrificing what he thought was a minor piece to demonstrate his power. He was about to find out he'd sacrificed his queen. "I need to draft an announcement," I said. "Something clean, professional, no bridges burned." "He burned the bridge," Eris countered. "You're just walking away from the fire." I began to type. After 10 incredible years of advancing science, I am excited to announce the launch of Kane Bionexus, a boutique consultancy dedicated to fostering integrity and innovation in scientific partnerships. We will be collaborating with select institutions to deliver the same commitment to excellence that has defined my career. To my former colleagues, thank you for the shared passion and the breakthroughs we achieved together. To our partners in the scientific community, your trust has always been my most valued asset. I look forward to continuing our work in this new capacity. More details to follow. For now, I am grateful for the overwhelming support and energized for what lies ahead. "Too classy," Eris said, reading over my shoulder. "It's professional. That's my brand. Your brand is results. And right now, you're getting them without the bureaucracy." He stood up. "Posted at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. Right when Julian is trying to run his emergency board meeting." As I packed up to leave, Eris added one more thing. "You know he's going to come after you. Non-solicitation, intellectual property, the works. Let him try," I said. "I've read every agreement I ever signed. I know exactly where the lines are. And taking half his scientific staff with you?" A small, grim smile touched my lips for the first time since Wednesday. "I'm not taking anyone. They're choosing science over politics." "There's a difference. Think he'll see it that way?" "I think by tomorrow afternoon," I said, "Julian Croft is going to have much, much bigger problems than me." Monday morning, 8:30 a.m., I hit post on the announcement for Kane Bionexus. In the quiet of my new temporary office, the click of the mouse felt as loud as a gunshot. The digital world responded instantly. The notification counter on the science forum began to spin, a blur of likes, shares, and comments. The professional nervous system of the biotech world was firing on all cylinders, and they were all watching Gene Vance's catastrophic self-inflicted wound in real time. My secure line rang immediately. It was Ben. "You need to hear this," he said, his voice a hushed, urgent whisper. I'm in the lobby, turning in my badge. I've just watched Leo, Maya, and 4 others walk into HR with resignation letters. The entire bioinformatics team just sent a group email to the department head saying they are resigning, effective in 2 weeks. Julian's emergency board meeting got derailed when the Petrova Institute's legal counsel called the chairman directly, mid-presentation. "Ben, you need to get out of there." "I'm cleaning out my desk now, Veda, but it's chaos. Absolute chaos. The internal communication channels are ghost towns. Nobody is working. They're all just refreshing the forum, watching your announcement." Another call came through. It was Leo. "We need to talk," he said. 7 of us from data and bioinformatics just submitted our resignations. We listed you as our professional reference. Is that okay?" "Of course, Leo, but make sure this is what you want." "What I want," he said, his voice hard, "is to work for someone who values scientific integrity over stock price. We all saw what happened on Wednesday. That could have been any of us next." His voice dropped lower. "Besides, we just found out from a friend in finance that Julian told the board you were an unnecessary overhead." Unnecessary. The woman who built the entire collaborative framework of this company. By 9:30 a.m., Kane Bionexus had received 19 formal inquiries, not from partners, but from Gene Vance's top scientists wanting to join our mission. Eris walked into my office, holding a tablet. "You need to see the morning news." He pulled up Biopharma Today. Mass exodus of scientific talent at Gene Vance following controversial firing. The article was brutal. Anonymous sources, whom I immediately recognized by their phrasing, detailed Wednesday's public humiliation. Industry analysts were openly questioning Julian Croft's leadership. The most damning part was a quote from a senior figure at a major research institution. "We are reevaluating all our partnerships. Stability and trust are paramount in drug development." "Julian is on Bloomberg," Eris added, switching the screen. "Damage control." I watched him, all polished confidence and empty corporate jargon. "Gene Vance is stronger than any single individual. We are pivoting to a more agile, data-driven partnership model, not maintaining outdated, inefficient relationships." "Outdated," I muttered. He truly believed it. My email chimed. A forward from Ben. "FYI, internal memo just went out. All partner communications now require executive approval. All resignations trigger immediate suspension of system access." Julian was threatening legal action against anyone who solicited partners or employees. I drafted a quick response to my growing list of prospective team members. Do not initiate contact with any Gene Vance partners. Do not recruit any current employees. We will do this by the book. Cleanly. Then I called my lawyer. They can threaten all they want, he said after reviewing my employment agreements. You have no non-compete clause. The partnerships are based on professional relationships that predate his employment. And if people choose to leave a toxic culture, that is not solicitation. It's self-preservation. Just document everything. By noon, the numbers were beyond anything I could have imagined. According to the forum analytics, my announcement had been viewed over 70,000 times. Gene Vance's stock, which had been halted pre-market, opened and immediately plummeted by 35%. Then came the call I had been waiting for. Veda, Julian's voice was pure ice. We need to discuss your illegal and intentional sabotage of our operations. Hello, Julian, I'm not aware of any sabotage. 25 employees, Veda. 25 resignations since Friday. Don't stand there and pretend you are not orchestrating this entire collapse. I pulled up my list of inquiries. The number was actually higher. People make their own choices, Julian. Especially when their leader shows them exactly how little they are valued. We will sue you into oblivion. For what? For existing? For starting a business? For having a reputation? For corporate espionage? For tortious interference? For theft of intellectual property? Julian, you fired me in a public spectacle. You called my life's work outdated. What precisely did you expect would happen? A long pause. When he spoke again, the polished corporate veneer was gone, shattered. His voice was raw, strained. You are destroying everything. No, I said calmly, the truth landing with the weight of a physical object. I am building something new. You are the one who destroyed what we had. We can work this out. Come back. Executive Vice President of R&D Equity Package. Name your price. Whatever you want, I don't want anything from you. Then what do you want? To watch us burn? Is that it? I thought about softening the blow, about being diplomatic. But he deserved the unvarnished truth. I don't have to watch you burn, Julian. You extinguished the fire yourself. I am simply walking away from the ashes. He hung up. An hour later, Gene Vance issued a press release about exciting restructuring opportunities and a renewed focus on core assets. Corporate speak for we are in free fall. Thursday, 2 p.m., I sat in Gene Vance's boardroom for the first time since my execution. The contrast was breathtaking. The same gleaming mahogany table where I'd been publicly humiliated now felt like a tribunal, and I was not the one on trial. Eleanor Vance, the board chair and daughter of the company's founder, sat at the head. Julian's chair was empty. Thank you for coming, Veda, Eleanor began, her voice strained but professional. We need to discuss the situation. Which situation? I asked. The 25 resignations of your top scientific staff, the 7 partnerships that have formally frozen collaboration, or the $5 billion drop in market capitalization? All of it, a director muttered. Veda, in 5 days, Gene Vance has lost nearly 2/3 of its early-stage development team and has had its entire $22 billion pipeline put at risk. We need to understand what happened. I nearly laughed. You were all on the distribution list for the symposium agenda. Did none of you question why terminating your head of scientific partnerships was a strategic priority? A tense silence. We were told it was a necessary efficiency measure, another director admitted. Julian's projections showed a 30% reduction in overhead. I grew your pipeline value by 400% in 10 years, I stated flatly. What part of that was inefficient? Eleanor slid a document across the table. This morning, the Petrova Institute, the Kaido Project, and 4 other key partners sent this joint letter. They are demanding that Gene Vance subcontract all scientific project management to Kane BioNexus, or they will invoke termination clauses for breach of collaborative faith. I read it without touching it. Dr. Petrova's signature was at the bottom, bold and uncompromising. They're not bluffing, I said. We know. Dr. Petrova called me personally. Her words were, and I quote, I collaborate with scientists, not spreadsheet jockeys. Eleanor's composure finally cracked. The board has deep concerns about Mr. Croft's leadership. Where is Julian? I asked. On administrative leave pending termination. The decision was unanimous last night. They wanted me to feel a surge of victory. Instead, I just felt a profound weariness. What do you want from me, Eleanor? Come back, she said immediately. Name your terms. Chief Scientific Officer, CEO, whatever title you want. Full autonomy, the board's complete backing. The vindication was there, a distant clinical satisfaction. but it wasn't sweet. No, I said, the word quiet but absolute. Eleanor, I have 25 scientists starting with me on Monday. I have 8 partners transitioning services. I have lease obligations and legal commitments. I stood up, the power dynamic in the room now completely inverted. More importantly, I have people who left secure jobs because they believed in a vision of doing science with integrity. I will not abandon them. Then a consulting arrangement, a director pressed, his voice pleading, something to stop the bleeding. I considered it, not for them, but for the science and for the good people still trapped in the wreckage. I will consider a transition consulting agreement, for specific, critical projects only, at triple our standard emergency rates. Triple. Eleanor's eyes widened. Emergency rates for an emergency you created, I replied, and one non-negotiable condition. Julian Croft is terminated effective today and is never to be involved in this company again. They exchanged glances. That will not be a problem, Eleanor said quietly. As I left, she walked me to the elevator. She looked tired, defeated. We should have listened, she said. Your name was on every key partnership agreement. We chose to believe his spreadsheets over your data. He saw trust as an inefficiency instead of our most valuable infrastructure. The elevator arrived. As I stepped in, she asked, would you have stayed if we had stopped him on Wednesday? I thought about it honestly. No. Julian showed me that Gene Vance had become a place where that could happen. A place where a decade of results could be erased by one man's ego. I couldn't stay somewhere that fragile. Back at Kane Bionexus, the team was waiting. They already knew about Julian's suspension. They offered you the kingdom, didn't they? Leo said, a knowing look in his eye. They did, and we have a company to build, our company. I looked around the room at the faces that had chosen uncertainty with integrity over security in a toxic system. Anyone having second thoughts? A deep silence, then Maya laughed. Are you kidding? We're building the model for how biotech collaboration should have been all along. Why would we ever go back? That night, I received one final, anonymous, encrypted message from inside Gene Vance. Thank you. Those of us still here see what you did. You didn't just save yourself. You gave us the courage to demand better. You are a catalyst. I saved the message. The time for looking backward was over. Friday evening, 6:00 p.m. The Kane Bionexus office was humming with a quiet, intense energy. 25 scientists working on 8 active projects. Whiteboards were covered in molecular diagrams and trial timelines. This was real. 1 week ago, I was publicly fired. Today, we are a multi-million-dollar consultancy with a 2-year runway. I raised my glass, to all of you, to believing in something better. Eris stepped forward with a bottle of champagne. A toast, he said. Week 1, 25 brilliant minds, 8 foundational partners, $3.5 million in signed consulting contracts, and a culture of integrity. The room erupted in a cheer that was pure, unadulterated relief and excitement. I looked at the faces of my team. My vindication wasn't in Julian's fall or the board's desperation. It was here, in this room. A week ago, a man in a suit thought he could erase 10 years of trust with a single power play. He believed authority came from a title, that fear was a tool, that people were assets on a spreadsheet. He was wrong. We didn't destroy Gene Vance. We simply refused to be a part of its decay. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Petrova. Saw the news about Croft's termination. Good, looking forward to our call on Monday. Real science recognizes real science. I stepped out onto the small balcony, looking out at the Boston skyline. I raised my glass one last time, a silent toast to the man who had inadvertently made it all possible. Thank you, Julian Croft. Your short-sightedness gave us a vision.